for you. So we're going to talk next about mini schedules and task strips. Here's an example on the screen. This one is just helping guide the student through the process of unpacking their backpack, hanging their coat up, checking their schedule at the beginning of the day. Those are the kinds of things we're talking about here. So the benefits of using mini schedules and task strips, there are many options and opportunities for these, right? All throughout your day. They can be used for those functional routines like hanging up your backpack and unpacking. They can be used for academic tasks. They can be used in an arts and crafts kind of activity. They can be used as part of a sensory schedule. There's a variety of ways that we can use these.
I saw a teacher using one last week to help get a student into their regular classroom,
Awesome.
to kind of help them predict what was going to happen while they're in there. So I thought that was neat to see how it could actually facilitate that student accessing a lesser restrictive environment.
And it could be used in a general education environment
absolutely.
for a student who needs to know what are the steps of this activity? What's going to happen while I'm in here? I'm going to do this, then this, then this. So that can help to support students in all environments. It's visual support for those routines, like we talked about. It increases student independence because when they can use that visual and go through the steps, they don't need us to stand there and tell them anymore. But they might need us to be a little more supportive and to prompt them as we go through at the beginning. But once we've taught them to use the visual, that often does promote independence and they're able to do it on their own. It helps students and staff with consistency. If I'm giving the same directions that my para is giving, if maybe the speech pathologist comes in the morning to help with the beginning of the day and they're using the same words because they're there on that visual, then it helps the student because we've all given them the same message. I really like the picture on the screen that has this mini schedule that the flaps open and close. So the student could, when they're finished with it, close the flap and then they finish that task. And it's another visual reminder, like kind of layering on another step of visuals for having completed it.
I've seen that one done backwards too, where you
close it,
review the
open it.
whole thing, what all they're doing, then you close them, and then you just take it one step at a time. I would prefer closing them, but some students,
I
I've
think
seen
you
it
could
used
do
the
either
other
way. Yeah. I like that might be good for a student who the visual is just too much visual stimulus, and so you would close it and have them open it. So we can use it for teaching. This is just a little craft activity, but I think you can see how it could be used for more of an academic task as well. But it breaks the task into steps. We can use it for all of the routines, and it provides the visual and the text for each step as we go along. So they have the example of what does it look like when I'm finished, and then each step as they go through the task. I'm going to show you. Go ahead, Rebecca.
I was just thinking about some of the small groups that I did with students earlier in my career, and I wasn't aware of the power of these mini schedules or these task strips. And I spent a lot of time redirecting students back to the task. And it was because, like we said at the beginning, that information, I explained it to them. I had an example, but that was transient information. It just came and went. But with this, my directions are permanent and I can say, yes, we did it, y'all. Now we're moving on to the next one. And I don't know if you guys are like me, but I'm supported by a bulletin in church on Sundays because I can kind of see where we're at and what comes up next. That supports me. So if that helps you kind of make a connection to how powerful these task strips can be for students.
I want to show you one other example that we have here that's in an old DVD case. I didn't come up with this idea, but I wish I would because it's really great. But you can put the mini schedule on the front of the DVD case with the pictures that pull off. So I even pointed at the pictures. Anyway, and you can store the extra pictures inside. This could be, you could also do a first then this way with you just have two, like we talked about earlier, but it could also be used as a mini schedule.
We use those at recess a lot when we have students, that are outside and they, sometimes our kids will just walk the perimeter of a fence or they get really stuck on one, like the swing, and they don't want to do anything but the swing. And so having that many, we get that loaded up and have a discussion about that before we go outside. And then I use a timer or just a gesture prompt to remind them that it's time to move on, helps with some of that rigidity and expanding their repertoire while outside at recess.
And I had a visual that I cannot locate at the moment, but that's okay. I'll just tell you about it. It was for a fire drill. So it's like the steps we take when the fire alarm goes off. And those can be really important too for those times when students, those aren't things that happen real frequently, but they're things that we do have to practice. So using a visual for practice during a fire drill or a tornado drill or any of those things can be very helpful and supportive of students. So a few tips and tricks. There's that example.
Yeah.
We're going to use them for work and play. So like Rebecca said, we can use them at recess, and you can see the example underneath the words at the bottom there. There's a picture on the right of a student using it for an activity where he is like the steps of a recipe. He made his snack with that. We can individualize it for student needs. Maybe some students can handle 3 steps, and some may be able to handle 5 or 6. So we can really vary it based on the needs of our students. We can reinforce step completion. So great job, you finished the first one, and then they've got, their Skittle, they've got a high five, they've got a penny on their penny board, whatever it is that you're using to reinforce. And then we can scaffold by starting small and adding steps. So maybe we start with 2 steps and then we add a third one, for example. You can also see on the screen a speech schedule. So your related service providers can use these as well. And they're often great at giving you ideas for how many steps can the student, handle at a time? How much language do they need to support them at this time? So really collaborating with those people can be very beneficial. Here's an example with a recipe. I don't know about you, but I like a visual recipe. I like it even better if it's a video I can follow along with, right? That shows me exactly what to do, especially if it's something new that I'm learning or a little more complicated.
I've never thought about
Those are
that.
great visual supports.
YouTube videos are like mini schedules.
They really are, and adults use them all the time. You can see there's one for a job, the student's job, their functional routine there. It's a little mini schedule that they can check off as they go through the steps. And then at the bottom is one for doing an academic task. I can see this being used very easily in a general education environment where the student gets their materials, sits in the chair, they're going to work quietly, put away their materials, turn in their assignment, and that can be edited and changed to add whatever steps are needed for the classroom and for that student.